Hey, it's Kevin with the New Warehouse Podcast, bringing you a new episode today. And on today's episode, we are going to be talking about automated packaging. We're going to be joined by two guys from CMC Packaging Automation. That's Jeff Belcher, who is the general manager, and Craig Hall, who is head of sales for North America. So we're going to learn a little bit about CMC. We haven't had them on the podcast before, so we'll hear a little bit about them and also their history as well. They've been around for 40 years, so we'll talk about kind of the evolution of the automated packaging business and how they've gotten to where they are now, and also talk about their new tech center that they're opening in the Atlanta area and a little preview on what they're going to be showing at Modex as well. So Craig and Jeff, welcome to the show. How are you both?
Very well. Good morning.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for having us, Kevin.
Yes, absolutely. Happy to get you both on. Happy to talk about this. I think you guys are addressing a very good need in the market, so we'll dive into that a little more. So Craig, why don't you kick us off here? Give us kind of a brief overview of CMC Packaging Automation and what it is that you all actually do.
So CMC is an Italian family-run business, founded by the Ponti family probably about 40 years ago. Originally, it started out in sort of mailing and wrapping, so mailing and inserting. So if you were looking at places like the US market, everything from things like the Valpak envelope to a lot of your sort of gas and utility bills were effectively produced or still are produced on CMC equipment. Obviously, over the last let's say 20 plus years. Mailing
Mhm.
volumes, particularly if you were to go back probably 10, 15 years, probably started to go into decline around the world, particularly just because of the impact effectively of your cell phone and online banking and all of that.
Sure.
Um, Obviously, a drive to go paperless in those environments. So, worldwide mailing volumes obviously went into decline. Um, as a result of that, at the start of CMC, it was involved in packaging originally for Italian Christmas cakes, panettone cakes. So
Okay.
that made the machines that effectively make the boxes. It's a slightly limited market, obviously, one, because it's for Christmas cakes, and
Yeah.
two, there's only a certain number of brands. So once you've made that, it is what it is. Giuseppe, the founder of CMC, probably now I would think probably about 15 years ago, started looking at packaging, and it
Mm.
was more about trying to get into a different sector of packaging rather than being, if I use the expression, a me too supplier, just providing another case erector or some form of specialist packaging. Um, did a lot of research around the world and effectively got into right size packaging.
Mm.
Saw this opportunity and growth in the e-commerce market and this ability to effectively say, right, well, if you are going to be in this e-commerce sector, you need this ability to make different size packaging for everything going out. It's no longer one size fits all. So as a result of that, he effectively developed what we know today as the carton wrap, which is a machine that's probably now, I would think, almost a teenager. For want of a better description, it must be almost
Okay.
13 years old.
Yeah.
I used to go to
Yes, yeah,
CMC
it's
as a customer, and I remember seeing it being developed over time. So yeah, it's probably, yeah, I would think it must be now almost 13 years old. Um, so that's where CMC started from.
Mhm.
Effectively, it was developed that way. The growth in right size packaging has obviously been significant in the market because you'll see it coming in now because obviously the drives around e-commerce, environmental impacts, obviously in the US, dimension-based packaging. So obviously more items per truck. So your impact on carbon footprint and the environment. So all of those things effectively have driven us, and we've probably seen a change over the last, I'd say, 5 or 6 years. Originally, when we started, probably in e-commerce, most people were probably just buying single items effectively from a
Sure.
from
Yeah.
a vendor, whoever that was. Obviously, as confidence, probably COVID as well, obviously kicked in and drove probably a lot of change in the marketplace. But effectively, people started to buy multiple items effectively from single vendors, whether that's Amazon, Walmart, or any of the others. So effectively, you had to start dealing with multi items. So rather than just worrying about doing a single item effectively through a machine to make a right size box, you now had to develop the equipment to be able to do multis. So in CMC's case, we moved from a carton wrap to a thing
Mhm.
called a Genesis, where effectively you pick your items to a tote. These days, KKR, the US private equity, invested in CMC,
Okay.
thinking about 2020. Might that year slightly wrong, but effectively they have a large stake in CMC, but the Ponti family, still run the business on a day-to-day basis.
Okay. Interesting, and interesting to hear the evolution there too, as well. You know, from mail to the Christmas cakes to now e-commerce and multi SKU orders, like you mentioned as well. And I think it's fascinating to see how the right size packaging market, as you mentioned, has kind of expanded and grown. And I'm curious there because I think I heard you say that you were a customer of CMC
Yeah,
previously, right?
ironically, both Jeff and I were.
Oh,
I worked
yes,
in
Really?
yes.
Okay.
If you
yes, yeah,
if you like a real laugh, Jeff actually, we were both customers for different mailing companies, effectively in the
yeah.
Mm.
UK, and then at a later stage, Jeff ran the service industry effectively for the UK when I was still a customer. So he had the unfortunate task of having to put up with me as a customer sat across the desk when he was delivering service for CMC. So yes, so we've
And
known each other for
yeah,
quite a while.
and let me tell you, Kevin, he was a
Yeah.
pain then, and he's a
Yeah.
pain now.
Yes, the if you were to speak to Francesco, the CEO of CMC,
Yeah.
he would say I was such a pain in the arse as a customer. It was better to have me inside than outside.
I like that. So he took away any risk of having you as a customer in the future, right?
I think he worked on the principle that I'd given him 15 years of grief as a customer.
Yeah.
So I'm 8 years in at CMC, so he still has 7 years of getting his own back left to go.
Yeah, definitely. Very interesting there, and very interesting that you both were customers before. So maybe Jeff, why don't you tell us kind of like when you were a customer, and even now, like what were the benefits that you saw in the CMC solutions, and what like kind of attracted you to them, and how did you utilize them?
Yes, so I mean, going way back when, I used to work for a company in Manchester, England, very similar to the technology that Craig was mentioning with the inserting. And so I worked for a company in the print and mailing industry, and it was just like that. And we was looking at new technology because, of course, a bit similar to what we're seeing now in the packaging world, where you're trying to do things much leaner, much cheaper, and utilizing the machine as much as possible. It was the same for mailing machines. Everybody wanted to do something faster. In a cheaper way, without not using as much labor. So that's what led me into the world of CMC. We was looking around for different technologies, and CMC had a machine called a CMC 9000, which there was nothing really that could compete with it in the market. It was something that would produce 30,000 letters per hour.
Oh wow.
And it was fully yes, and it was able to compete as well with the full transactional mail divisions as well. So everything was running with cameras and doing full matching, etc. So yes, that led me into the world of CMC, and we ended up buying some machinery off them in several plants for the company I was working for. And again, what got me into looking closely with CMC is because it was a family-run business, but what the service that they was able to provide was more than just being a customer. So that's what initially attracted me to them as a business. And ultimately, when I decided to leave the company in the UK, I ended up working for Francesco.
Mm. Interesting.
Yeah,
Interesting. Okay.
I think the big difference is CMC is an engineering business.
Mm.
So
Yes.
both Jeff and I are probably you see it in the packaging world. Um, Everybody says we like your equipment, and then comes the but.
Yeah.
And it's we
Yeah.
like your equipment, but, and it's what happens after the but that I would say is where CMC probably differentiates itself. I mean,
Mm.
I've literally, when I was a customer, drawn a piece of equipment on a napkin, taken a picture of it, sent it to Francesco and said, "Can you make me this?" And they
Mm.
have done. I think we installed them in 2014, and they're still there running in the UK today.
Oh wow.
Um, but in the packaging space, everybody's, we like your machine, but can
Mm.
you do a different box size range? Can you make the format of the machine different because we've got limited space? We want our trash to come out one side and go 10 foot in the air into a centralized trash conveyor. We want 6 people to able to be induct on our bagging line. So
Mm.
it's what happens at the butt that probably is CMC's biggest sell point, and its speed of doing it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I guess maybe that's a testament to the Italian craftsmanship, right? Being able to
It's
do that,
certainly
right?
a testament to the Italian flair, yes, and
Yeah.
an engineering challenge.
Sure, absolutely, absolutely. So tell us a little bit about, maybe for people that aren't necessarily familiar with right size packaging systems, or haven't worked with them in the past. Tell us a little bit about how do the systems actually work, and kind of what do they look like? Because I saw on your website you have multiple different offerings, right? So tell us a little bit about how a system works overall, and how does it fit into an operation?
It's basically around this principle that every box that you're going to make, or every bag that you're potentially making, needs to be a different size, because at the end of the day, you want to use, from an environmental perspective, the minimum amount of packaging possible, and you want to get as many products as possible onto a truck at its simplest level. And it's how do you automate that process? So if you were going to start with boxing in our world, effectively you're going to place an item onto a conveyor. It's going to go through a Cubiscan. Once it goes through a Cubiscan, we now know the size of the box that we need to produce. This technology runs from what people call fan fold, or in the US, sometimes it's called Z fold cardboard.
Sure.
And effectively, the machine will have different widths of cardboard feeding in. Based on the dimensions that you've got from the Cubiscan, the machine will pull the most appropriate width of cardboard. It will then cut, crease, and score it to create the template for a box. And effectively, what will happen is it will place the item into the box and construct the box around it, and then effectively label it. So your address label, and out it goes. Now, that's fine for singles because obviously you don't have to worry too much about item stability, etc., on a conveyor. The challenge comes when you want to do multi items. So I want to buy a tennis ball, I want to buy a can of Coke and an iPhone, for argument's sake. If I just put those three items together on a conveyor, are they going to stay together? Probably not.
Yeah.
And something's going to move slightly. And if something moves as it's going through a Cubiscan, then effectively I'm going to create an oversized box,
Mm.
because now the items have moved. So in the CMC world, we developed a machine called a Genesis. So you pick your item to a tote,
Okay.
normally from the bottom of your storage and retrieval system. So you might pick directly into our tote. Now you don't have to worry about item stability, because the tote has two sliders inside that effectively you adjust once you've completed your order.
Mm.
And also, you don't have to worry about the thing that people refer to as license plating. So I don't have to worry about putting a single barcode on that order to effectively drive the address label, because what you're going to do is you're going to allocate that order effectively to the tote. The
Mm.
tote has a barcode, and that's what will drive the machine. And when it feeds into the machine, so a robotic arm picks it up. Sorry for me waving my arms around. And the bottom of the tote will slide out, effectively a bit like a false bottom, and that will then create a right size box that way. The principle of how it cuts and creases the cardboard is the same, but
Mm.
it allows you to do multi items. You don't have to worry about the stability of the items effectively, and put them into a right size box. The other things that we do are around bags, because obviously a lot of the technology that we had from the mailing industry, of effectively how you would wrap magazines, how you would wrap that type of product, has now been taken and applied to the e-commerce world. And a lot of people in the e-commerce world, again, are wanting to get away from plastic. There's a lot of, brand awareness now about being environmental. There's a lot of loyalty, particularly amongst the younger population, to more environmental brands. So as a result, people don't want plastic as the wrap.
Sure.
So effectively, we're using paper or a form of bubble that is curbside recyclable. So effectively, you can make right-sized bags in a similar way. Ours tend to be horizontal baggers. So if you want speed, you'll use a horizontal bagger, and we can trim on length and width. So again, you're getting good cube out effectively for the item that's going to go in the mail. And we've now launched machines like I'll call it a super vertical, where effectively similar type of process, but again, it's 3D right size bagging, but smaller footprint.
Mm.
So with the, let's say, less greenfield sites being built, let's say post COVID,
Sure.
uh, people are looking to sort of retrofit more into brownfield sites. So you've got smaller space requirements and maybe less integration. So can I just put something on the floor that potentially is I can run more in isolation, rather than having to put in a huge amount of conveyor and infrastructure to deliver to it.
Interesting, interesting.
And
And did I
just
hear you say earlier on the bagger? Did I hear you say there was like a 6 person bagger or something like that?
So yeah, because quite often when you're trying to run quickly,
Hmm.
and bagging can run very quickly. You heard Jeff, on the inserter world talk about
Yeah,
inserters
yeah.
running 50,000 an hour. If you were looking at products that are making envelopes, where it's the same technology that's actually effectively wrapping around, where you can feed something from a hopper, like a magazine or a feeder, you can run very, very quickly. Now, in the e-commerce space, obviously that's different. You'll probably got to manually feed something that effectively may be different shapes and sizes. So, Jeff orders a pair of shoes, you order a t-shirt, I order something else.
Hmm.
But if you're going to be running at thousands an hour, and let's just say superficially, these machines will run at 3,000 an hour quite happily. That basically means you're picking something almost every second.
Yeah.
So, you need multiple people and also be able to have multiple uh, pouch sort of systems or whatever feeding down so that people can physically get the product out and onto the conveyor so the machine can achieve the speed. It's all very well saying I can run at X. The
Mm.
question is, can I pick it that quickly and can I feed it that quickly? So where you look at wrapping technology, so going into paper bags, that type of stuff on horizontal wrappers, it's not unusual to have multiple stations feeding into an induct conveyor and multiple people on those stations just because of the pick rate that you need to have in order to get the throughput.
Interesting, interesting. And Jeff, you were gonna say something
Sorry.
before?
Yeah, I was just going to say, just to pick up on where Craig was mentioned, because Craig made a key point there of, less and less greenfield sites coming online,
Yeah.
and that's where our technology, because our technology is what we say as a box last solution. Meaning, in terms of being able to integrate our technology into a brownfield site, we don't require, let's say, item master data or anything like that. Because it's a box last solution, everything is being done at machine level. So that
Hmm.
allows the integration of the machine into let's say, the warehouse management system. It is very easy because we are just looking at that order entitlement. So once we've got that, everything else that's required to make that right size box and apply that shipping label is all done at machine level. So once we've got the dimensions, etc., and the weight of the items, we give that information back to the customer to allow them to go and do that rate shopping. And with the label applicator being integrated into the machine, we will apply it at machine level, and then off it goes straight off to the shipping area. The same with the technology itself, because we are making the box last solution at machine level. With the multiple different widths, let's say, of the fanfold, the Z-fold corrugate, we're optimizing which corrugate to use to also, in the efforts of being sustainable, to not only make the right size box, but also doing that with the least waste possible.
Yeah, yeah, and I think it's very interesting because I heard you mention in there too, which I think you're referencing here, is there's like a cube scan essentially built in, right, to the
Correct.
system, right? So to your point, right, you don't have to necessarily rely on that master data being 100% correct, even though we would love for it to be 100% correct for everything else,
Exactly.
right? But that's often the challenge with a lot of automation systems, right? Is that like, okay, well, these dims are off or the weight's not right, and now that's throwing off everything that we kind of modeled. But in your instance, right, and
Yeah.
for your solution, like it's capturing that at the moment, so you don't necessarily have to rely on that so much, which I think is a really good thing. So let's talk a little bit kind of about that kind of brownfield aspect that you both touched on there, because what does this look like for somebody that is, doing a traditional packing station and then going to transition into this, right? So I have my manual packers, they get the order, comes down, they're, scanning it, confirming it, they're putting it in a box, taping it themselves, right? And now I'm going to look at right size packaging and make that transition. What goes into making that switch from not only from like a human operator perspective, but also from the perspective of like space? How do I rearrange my operation to be able to accommodate some of these machines? What does that whole transition look like?
Um, it varies by
Hmm.
customer, to be honest.
Yeah.
One of the main drivers obviously is labour and
Hmm.
labour shortages,
Sure.
particularly during peak periods. for people to be able to get, particularly in the e-commerce space, everybody tends to be fighting over the same labor pool for a limited period of time, because everybody's normally having a period where, let's say from Thanksgiving till Christmas, they need a disproportionate labor pool to any other time. But it goes right back to, from your integration into your WMS or potentially WCS, or using middleware. It's how you're actually physically going to get the products from however you've got them stored effectively to a machine, because obviously the rate that you're going to need to supply them to a machine for a single person potentially to induct is far greater than going to multiple pack stations. It's doing the analysis against effectively your SKUs to say, right, if I pack this out at a SKU level, what size boxes will I actually produce, and therefore how much corrugate will I use, and therefore what will my shipping cost be. So you go through all of that learning curve effectively as part of the analysis, compared to, here's my SKU now, I'm going to pick. If you're familiar with those manual pack stations, you normally
Yeah.
have got the boxes above your head and you have a range of boxes, and it varies on a customer, how, the benefit on a customer varies, because some people will have done a huge amount of rationalization and maybe are only sending out a limited number of product sizes, and other people may have millions of product sizes, and effectively what's happening is they're picking from a range of boxes over their head, they're picking it down, they're placing the item in, and then they're probably using void fill or something to pack out the additional space to stop movement, and then tape sealing and manually sending it out. So there's a big difference, obviously, between the two, but it's more around, how am I going to get the product to the machine at the right speed? There's no point effectively have something that can go much quicker, but then I can't deliver the product to it, because what's the benefit? And then it's a case of saying, having done all that, how is it going to integrate in with the WMS so that effectively we're putting the right label on the right box at the right time? And normally what happens is people tend to strip out quite a lot of manual pack stations. They don't tend to strip them all out, being honest.
Okay.
They tend to leave some there for contingency and some there for overflow. If, for example, they go into peak, they still want that ability to be able to bring in some manual people if they need to.
Just to touch on that as well, is because also it very much depends on where the customers are on their automation journey. Because when everyone's looking at automation, everyone's focusing on, okay, how do we store these items and how do we pick them? So one of the common things you hear from integrators is, okay, we've given the solution for the automated picking and storage, etc. But what's the solution for pack out? And that's where there always seems to be the opportunity, but it's not taken as their first steps of automation. So, and that's where our machine allows to integrate in with that. Craig mentioned with, the WMS and the WCS systems. We can fit into all of these different technologies, whether it's auto store or whether using AMRs, etc. We can fit in and integrate quite easily with all of them different systems, and allows the customers to then reassign their labor into other areas of opportunities, and reduce the labor into the actual pack out area.
Yeah, interesting, and I think it's an interesting kind of transition there, and I love the honesty there, Craig. Around, there's some manual pack stations that remain for some contingency and other things, or overflow, right, and to be able to handle some of that. But I think moving towards the right size packaging, right, it sounds like it's a big kind of throughput and efficiency gain on the outbound side of the facility, and being able to also do that right size packaging, has its benefits from sustainability factor, also from a cost savings factor, which you mentioned in the beginning there, Craig. So now in order to see some of these machines like in action, you guys have opened this tech center in the Atlanta area. So tell us a little bit about that, and kind of what's the purpose of opening this I guess display place for you all.
Yes, so the facility is in Atlanta, just let's say 10 minutes from the airport. So of course,
okay.
Atlanta is the busiest airport in the world. So this, it's very easy to get to and from. But I think one of the main purposes is having the tech center there is, when we are trying to showcase our machines, before having a facility, we're always having to take them to live operations. And they may not be the right technology for them. It may be, they're having to travel quite some distance. So we decided to open up a tech facility and put all of the different technologies all under one roof. And also as well, we brought our headquarters as well for spare parts, etc., all in the one place. Because of course, being in Atlanta, you can ship it out with the the largest airport in the world just on your doorstep. But with the technology, we've got like Craig said, we've got the Genesis there. We've got the carton wrap, and we've also got what we call the Paper Pro, which is the horizontal bagging machine. So regardless of what let's say products that you're doing, what vertical you fit in, we're able to showcase these items running through the machine. So quite often, as you're engaged with your partners, your prospects, you can have the discussion around the entitlement and how the machine could give value add to them. But what is really good for them is they can ship their items physically to us, and they can visit the tech center and they can see the products going through their machines, how it would be in a live environment. So allowing them to do that and see that and then engage in the discussion with us around the technology, it gives them a greater idea and view of is this technology right for them. But it's not just for customers, it's also for, let's say, 3PLs and integrators, because again, one of the common things I hear from integrators is, okay, we've given them the solution for, let's say, the storage and retrieval, but what about the packout? So we use the tech center as well to do, let's say, lunch and learns, where we can invite people to learn about CMC and the technology that we have and how we can integrate with them. So we do that as well, but also customer training. Again, doing training on a live site is incredibly difficult because there's hundreds of distractions, and we want to give them the best customer training so then they can go off and self-support and get the true value out of the technology. So we hold a lot of training classes on the technology as well in Atlanta, and that's internal and external as well. And again, like I say, with the spare part department that we have as well, everything's all under one roof.
Yeah, and I think that's a great thing to have, not only from being able to showcase it to potential customers or people that are shopping for right size packaging options, but also from the education perspective, as you mentioned, like the training and being able to inform people on how certain things work, or like you said, the spare parts and maintenance and things like that. So very interesting there. And I'm curious, from the education perspective, right? What are some of the kind of common misconceptions around automated packaging systems that you hear in the industry, and how would you address them?
I think it's difficult because I think everyone has different views. I think one of them is how to integrate it into the system. All of this data up front requirement. Rather than thinking of our system as, let's say, a standalone machine with a simple integration into their existing WMS or existing middleware. There's a conception of the technology, and then what do we need around that infrastructure to allow this technology to work. So once you start to have that conversation, and they really understand, let's say it's a dumb machine, it will do what you tell it to do. It really starts to allow them to think of, okay, how can we utilize this machine best to get the right size packaging, and then use our resources somewhere else in the factory to get a better value add in different areas.
Got it.
The other thing people sometimes think is that we're going to force you to buy the consumable from us, which we don't.
Okay.
Particularly in North America, because obviously the country is so big, just in terms of the general logistical terms. So we're not trying to tie somebody into a consumable usage model. It's just a case of you're free to buy that, whatever type of packaging you want, and just use it on the equipment.
Yeah, and just to add on that as well, there is a fear as well. We've obviously doing this leap between doing something manual to something like this right size packaging is, what if something happens? How can we resolve the issue? How can we guarantee an uptime and availability? Because if we are going to do manual, go from manual to automation, what if that fails? So, of course, bridging that gap between a skill set of let's say, looking after conveyance to looking after technology like this, we fully support all of our customers to however they want to be supported. So, if they want to self-maintain, we will build a scope of work which is suitable for them. So it's not like one box fits all. Everyone needs to be on their own journey, and we will support them on that journey until they're comfortable in self-supporting, so the machine is performing at the level they expect it to operate at. And likewise, if you say, okay, we haven't got the skill set, we have high attrition, etc., CMC, will you look after all of the maintenance and guarantee the performance of the machine? And then we will do that as well. But we have 300 technicians in North America. So for the customers that are, let's say, self-supporting, if you need support, we can support you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Yeah, that's great to hear, definitely. And obviously, I think that makes a lot of sense, right? Because you're going from, just relying on the manual labor to pack to a machine now, right? And obviously mechanical, things like that. There's risk potentially, right? But it sounds like you're able to support that there. So really interesting to hear that, and love that you have the tech center in Atlanta, right? And close by the airport, which I think is a great thing. And the lunch and learn, though, I gotta know. I mean, does it lean towards the Italian side, or are you guys bringing in some British
You're
food
more concerned about
lunch?
the lunch there, aren't you?
I mean, I hear food. I'm interested.
Well, one of the first requirements of having the tech center was a good coffee machine. So that was our first investment.
Yeah.
And I will say that the local people think it's a very good coffee machine, but unfortunately, it's not really impressed the Italians that come over and visit from time to time. Yeah, so it's not quite good enough.
All right, great. And so since it's in Atlanta and we have Modex coming up, I have to ask: Are you guys going to be doing tours there? Are you going to be exhibiting at Modex? What's the plan to CMC kind of take over Atlanta a little bit there?
Yes, so yes, we will be at Modex. We will have an exhibition there. We will be showing how we integrate with different partners as well, to do more automation and less touch. So there's going to be that, which is going to be the main exhibition, as well as we have a machine called the Super Vertical, which Craig touched on before, which is again very small footprint, very small corrugate usage, etc., and also right sizing. But in terms of the tech center, we're going to have that open every day. So anyone that wants to, let's say, understand different technologies or see the machinery working in more of a different setting, then it's going to be open every day. So again, we will have both at Modex, and the tech center will be open as well.
All right, fantastic. And if people want to learn more about that, or get in touch, or set up their time to visit the tech center, what's the best way to do that?
Of course, we have our website, and then there is also as well, you can contact us through the email addresses that's there, or the phone numbers. So the website, I think it's cmcsolutions.com. You'll be able to see whether it's sales or service. You can navigate through there and find the right contacts.
All right, fantastic. And I appreciate you both joining me on the show here today. And we'll definitely put all the information about CMC at thenewwarehouse.com, as well as in the show notes here. So make your way down to Atlanta, check out the tech center, get some maybe some semi-good coffee, depending on where you're from, it sounds like. But definitely check out the Right Size Packaging Solutions there, and get your hands on kind of what that looks like, and figure out what's the next evolution of your packing area. So Craig and Jeff, thank you so much for joining me today on the New Warehouse Podcast.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Kevin.
Hey guys, thank you so much for tuning into today's video here on our YouTube channel, the New Warehouse Podcast, and I appreciate you tuning in. If you liked what you saw, make sure you subscribe to our channel, and if you like this video in particular, make sure you like it as well. And if you want to get this great t-shirt that you see in the video behind me, Warehouses Are Sexy, head to warehousesAreSexy.com and get your own.